Hi, we're excited to invite you to be a part of something truly meaningful. Purpose-Inspired TV, a faith-based streaming channel and social media outlet focused on helping people discover and live out their God-given purpose. We're building more than just a media outlet. We're creating a like-minded community of content creators, coaches, teachers, business owners, faith leaders, and everyday people who are passionate about making a real impact, locally, nationally, and even globally. Our mission is simple but powerful. Help people in every area of life. Uplift and inspire through positive, purpose-driven, collaborate on real-world projects where there's need. Whether you create, teach, coach, or simply have a heart to serve, there's a place for you here. We believe that if you're human, you're worth helping, and together, we can reach and impact more lives than ever before. We can change lives and grow together. Our numbers are small, just like all the other platforms when they started. But as we grow, we will help you grow as a family. We will work together and pull each other up. If this sounds like something you're called to be a part of, we'd love to connect with you. We can participate on each other's shows. We can partner with each other on a cause. You can get a time slot on the channel. You can be a sponsor on the channel. Let's work together with and for a purpose. Don't just watch history, let's make it. Get inspired, Purpose-Inspired TV.
What's up, everybody? We are back. We've been having some great conversations going on. And today, we're going to keep them going. We know every time you come on the news, there's something has changed, something new. And I've been trying to keep giving updates. You know, a lot of people say they don't like the news. They don't want to watch the news. The news make them depressed and all that. And then a lot of stuff they don't understand. So I got you. So that's what I've been doing. I'm not only talking about what's going on now, I've been going back in history and explaining what a lot of these words, a lot of the words that you might have learned when you were in school and might have forgot about it, just learned it just long enough to pass a test. And then after that, you forgot all about it. Now, all these words are just popping up on the news every day. They keep talking about this and that thing. Like, so now you're saying, what is that all about? So that's what I've been doing, explaining a lot of those words, explaining a lot what's been going on, explaining like a lot of the big word now is executive orders. There's been so many executive orders that's been signed. So I got a special guest today. We're going to dig into it just like I've been doing before, but I got another brain here to dig deeper than what I've been doing. All right. So welcome to the stage, my brother. Make sure I'm DJing, pushing the right button. Mr. Stanley Barnes, how in the world are you? How you doing?
Good. We're excited. We're about ready to fire off here and see if we can help the people with some of the information that they may be missing out on.
Yes, but it's so much. Every time you and I see each other, we're like, hey, did you hear about this? Did you hear about that?
Oh yeah.
But so it's so much information. I decided let's try to break it down, and if we can get back do a couple more shows like this.
Okay.
But now, like going back a little bit to the foundation.
All right.
So we're going to be talking about a little bit, starting off with talking about the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that. Before we get started, let me show you something. We believe there's a lot of people in Congress, in the government right now, that has not read the Constitution. Here's your copy of the Constitution.
All right.
My copy of the Constitution in my book. So people need to look at the Constitution.
Yes, sir.
That's the starting point.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get started. So we're talking about civil rights and Constitution. If you don't mind, if you can start, could you tell us a little No problem. Tell us the difference between the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
Well, I think what's most important now, we don't want to
No.
give the people a whole lot of information,
Okay.
but we're just going to pull out what's significant right now, because the big issue now in the news is Article 5.
Article 5.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, of the Constitution. And what we're dealing with is the lack of due process.
So let's stop right there.
Yeah.
Due process.
Yes. So we're talking about due process. So we're talking about the individual's right to be heard in front of a judge.
And a lot of politicians feel like, even our leader feel like everybody shouldn't have due process. It takes too long.
Yes.
Too many people that they're trying to remove. So I believe they don't understand about the due process. Could you explain what due process is and why everybody had the right for it?
And the reason why is because the Constitution provides every individual. It doesn't specifically say black, white, red, yellow. Every individual has a right to due process. So what we need to be very mindful of is that whenever a right is stripped away from one person, that creates a slippery slope. And so now they have the opportunity to remove that right from other groups of people. So you can't, or we want to be careful not to just say, well, that's happening to that group of people.
Right.
Because if it can happen to that group of people and your rights can be stripped away, now that just opens the door for it to be stripped away from other groups of people.
Right.
Yes.
So that's what we're seeing. Like I said, when I make the post, like I really prefer not to say anything until I dig it up and look for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of this information is right on the White House website.
Yes.
They're putting it right there. So some people say, where did you get your news from? It's right. All you got to do is go right to the White. I don't have to watch any news.
Mm-hmm.
Or if somebody, if I might see a news clip or something and I can see that person saying it, that's one. It's not a reporter saying it. If that person's saying it, and then if somebody else makes a report on it, I can go to the White House website, and most of the time it's posted right there.
Right.
So anybody's like, I'm watching the wrong type of news, you don't want to listen to us because we listen to the wrong news.
Mm-hmm.
We can go find it ourselves, and you can do the same thing. You can go look it up yourself. You don't have to worry about any kind of bias that you don't agree with.
Right. Because we know some people don't want to watch Fox News because they said, okay, well, Fox is going to be completely biased to the right.
Right.
And so a lot of people don't want to watch CNN because they feel like CNN may be biased. So we encourage you to do your own digging, do your own reading. Right. There's a lot of independent news agencies out there. There's another really good one called The Independent. Mm-hmm. And so that's a good one to read because they stay middle of the road. And you're able to get both sides of the picture there. And so you're able to look at the information. And even as we're talking about here with due process, if you have a case, bring it before the judge, present all your information, and then we'll make a determination. That's all we're saying is that if that's the case, bring all the information, present it before a judge, let him make a decision, and then we move forward because we want that for everybody. And I think that's what is basically the foundation of our democracy.
Right. So, and what we're seeing, like a lot of this stuff is intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about the immigrants. Some departments have been given rights to just bust up into houses or just grab people. They don't have any badges. And this is what I haven't looked up and found out yet, but okay. I was told I tell you, if I haven't found it out myself, I'll tell you, I've seen some reports that some of the militia groups, even I don't know if I say their name, even the Proud Boys,
okay,
has been deputized to go gather immigrants to round them up. So when they got a lot of videos out there of these groups of individuals heavily armed, with no badges, with no anything, but they're saying that they were instructed to apprehend certain people, certain immigrants, no warrants,
right,
anything like that. So, and they consider themselves the law, and
right.
They don't have to go by any due process because they're saying they have the authority to bypass due process, the due process.
Right. Nothing could possibly go wrong with that, because there could not possibly be a way that could end poorly for somebody. And that's what we want. That's what we don't want to do. We don't want to get vigilantes out there administering justice when we have courts and we have processes that we should be utilizing. And that's what we talk about when the two of us talk, is that use the processes that are in place. I mean, we've got 200 years of these processes being utilized. Why aren't we using what's in place? Why are we trying to circumvent it for a group of people just so that we can expedite a process that we want to see executed? So those are the things that you and I talk about when we talk.
Right. So, and part of you talking about expediting.
Mm-hmm.
So that we're jumping, that's from the past, but let's jump to the front real quick when we go back.
Okay.
Expediting is these executive orders.
Okay.
Executive orders is a way. Let me back up. Let's go back to high school. The way a law is passed is a bill. They have to go through the House of Representatives, have to go to the Senate, they have to go to the president. So some presidents decide, hey, I don't want to go through all that. So let me just sign an executive order, whether it's legal or illegal. I'm signing an executive order as long as I got my boys to go take care of it. Let's go do it.
Right.
So what do you think? What do you think the fallout is going to be after all these executive orders and all these lawsuits against a lot of these executive orders?
Well, if you think about it too, it's just another way to circumvent the system. Just like failing to give an individual due process is a way to circumvent the system. You say we're at war with Venezuela, so you have an opportunity to try to use the Aliens Enemy Act to deport people. It's the same thing with the executive orders. If you're able to circumvent that whole bill process that you just mentioned, circumvent Congress and their approval, now you get the chance to advance your agenda without any oversight. And that's really what we're talking about also, is that the checks and balances that we've built into the system, so they're co-equal. So you don't have one branch that has more power than the other. So that's just, in my opinion, another way just to circumvent the system.
And so that look back around to today, what we see in the news is that three branches, that three-legged stool. We got one branch is taking away the power from the Congress, and then they're working their way to take away power
from the judiciary.
So they can have most of the power.
Yes.
So that's where the problems are. Then when you see people on their side, the only reason why we can't do whatever we want to do is because of these judges. So we need to get rid of these judges. We need to arrest these judges.
Yes.
That's some dangerous territory.
Oh, that's once again, that's a slippery slope. That's a slippery slope. And see, but you said before we got started is that the Constitution protects us. But who protects the Constitution?
Who protects the Constitution?
So that's why when these people that represent us take these offices, they swear to uphold the Constitution. And so that's an oath that you take, and it's required because that's what supports us all. The Constitution is the undergirding for all of us. And so when you have individuals who we've appointed to represent us, and then they're not protecting and abiding by the Constitution, that's a problem. That's going to be a long-term problem.
I can't stay on track, but
well, we don't really have a track. So
speaking of, so if we got a group of people that do not agree with the Constitution,
yes,
it's holding us back from doing what we want to do. We need a percentage of states to change the Constitution. So at this very moment, states are coming together. Our governor, I don't know what the report is, but I've heard a story of our governor has been on the road, going to different Republican states to try to gather in more Republican states to join forces to be able to change the Constitution.
Wow.
So now when that happens, now we can come back and pick and choose, throw out whatever you want to throw out, and let's keep what we want to keep. And whatever the direction that they're trying to take us in. And a lot of people, hey, what direction they're trying to take us in? They gave us a blueprint.
Yeah. Project
Step by
2025.
Project 2025. They can continue to say, I don't know anything about it. They're doing that step by step. You can go get Project 2025 and look at everything they're doing right now. They're following step by step. And for them to be able to push it even further, we need to change the Constitution. And so they're working on that. So let's go back to some civil rights.
Okay.
So it was Article
5.
Article 5, and it's another article. It's so many.
I think you maybe mentioned it 14, maybe.
Is it a 14? Yeah, it was 14.
Well, it was Amendment 5, not Article 5, Amendment 5. And then I think we're looking at Article 14. I believe it's maybe not. Anyway, you can go on now. I'll see if I can find it. 14.
Oh, that's amendment. But yeah, everybody should get a copy of the Constitution. Just again, read it yourself. It's in black and white. But I think part of the issue is a lot of the politicians, they want to interpret it their way. When it was written, they argued. I could, went through this, for a long time, a extended period of time of some smart people to be able to write it the way they decided to write it. So now I'm trying to say that, and I know it's getting to the Constitution. I know there are certain people, they follow the Constitution word for word. And I heard other people say the Constitution is a breathing, living document. So it should be changed with the time.
Right.
But still, the Constitution is already here. That we have it in writing. And we can't just pick and choose what we want to use and abide by and then throw out the other, or I refuse to follow this. So again, it keeps the slippery slope. It's so many slippery slopes that we're on right now. And I don't think the average most Americans don't understand that.
And I think that's important too, that you get involved in your local politics, and you also make sure that you're staying abreast of the news. We talked about this before too. A lot of people don't want to watch the news. They say there's nothing but bad news. But I think you have a responsibility to stay informed about what's happening in and around you. And so this is a perfect example. I think they're following a blueprint. When I say they, I mean the GOP. They're following a blueprint of, if we can get people really discouraged and disgruntled about how the government is functioning, so we fire mass firings, we come in with a hatchet rather than a scalpel, and then we remove all these positions, which of course are going to diminish the effectiveness of the government. That just enhances what they're telling you, is that the government can't take care of you, the government can't provide for you. So that just opens the door for them to be able to bring in private businesses to take over these things that the government is not able to take care of anymore. Perfect example of is the Social Security. Removed all of the people, removed the offices, closed the offices. Now people have to come in to verify. So that's a problem. But rather than you looking at how the problem was created, you look at the fact that now I have to go in. So now the government is not doing what they should do. Or you're trying to call the Social Security line, and now you can't get on the line because they've removed the people that were actually answering the phones. And so it's a system to try to get you to, one, distrust the government even more, so that you'll say, no, we need to privatize all of these things. And so it works great for the people in the 1%. But for those of us down here on the ground doing the work every day, it makes it difficult.
Yeah. It's small little details. Even you're talking about Social Security, having to go to the office. What just happened? The real ID. And when I was going over that this morning, and granted, a little bit biblical.
Okay.
I think that's a step closer to getting a mark, getting a digital form in you. So, and somebody, again, this wasn't even part of my plan. Someone broke it down to where when did the digital ID, not digital, I mean the real ID,
Right.
So like now, like I said, like I'm talking, You just said you got to go to the Social Security office.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the real ID, you're not even going to be able to go in the building. You're not even going to be able to go in there.
Okay.
So it started back during 9/11. So after 9/11, they was like, okay, so we need some kind of national registration of everybody to protect the country.
Mm-hmm.
But even the real ID was here, it wouldn't have prevented 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had, it could have been forged, but everybody had the right, all the
They had the right credentials.
They had the right credentials. They had everything they needed.
Okay.
So they would have had the real ID.
Okay.
So the real ID wouldn't have stopped it.
Right.
And then another person like, okay, if that was such a security risk that we really need Americans to get this real ID to protect America, why did it take 20 years?
Mm.
So we done went 20 years without it.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we really got to push.
It's a necessity right now.
We got to hammer it home.
Mm-hmm.
No, if it falls in line with keeping people in line and registering. I know you heard about Kennedy want everybody that has autism to be registered.
I hadn't heard that one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of his people that he works with,
Right.
they want to register everybody with autism to keep track of them or who has autism. And he even said y'all can correct me, I don't know the exact date. I think he said by September he's going to have a cure for autism.
Okay. So we all standing by for that one, huh?
But
we can't cure measles, which we already had cured. Now we got a measles outbreak in Texas, but you're gonna cure autism by September.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I know it's a date.
Mm-hmm.
He said a month.
A date certain this year.
He said a certain month this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I could let that pass. But then the part of registering everybody that has autism, and then coming up with a lot of different types of registrations. So it was supposed to be a party of you're free to be in America, but now it's like
less government. It was less government. It was supposed to be their objective. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now it seems like we have the opposite.
Right.
We have the opposite now. And so we're going back to a lot of our freedoms are being taken away. I talked about the other day about what was the executive order to unleash the police officers. It's actually an executive order, unleash the powers to the police officers. And when I'm like, unleash, I thought they already had power. And we talked about how if they already got a certain amount of power, and now you unleashing them with more power, the only way you give someone more power, you got to take rights away.
Somebody has to lose something somewhere.
Yeah. How do you give more? You can't. How do you give more power
without somebody having less?
Without somebody having less. So when you say unleashing, that means you turn around. You got to be restricting to be able to unleash one side.
Right.
So, for you know a little about law enforcement.
A little bit. Yeah.
So if that's the case, so what does that sound like to you when you say unleashing the officers after they already have certain rights? What could possibly be what's next?
Well, my concern would be that you're not told what they can and cannot do, and so you wouldn't even have any idea when you were violating whatever the new rights that they have are.
Yes.
So that would be one of my concerns. And I mean, right now you can actually, and I think that's probably one of the bigger issues we're talking about here. We have a constitution, so until this changes, we need to abide by what we have. It will be the same thing with the police getting additional powers. Okay, if you made a decision, if the courts have made a decision, they're going to get additional powers if we've gone through the process. Then we just need to know what those are so that everybody's operating on the same plane. And that's one of the fears. That's why now when a police officer pulls up, you already know what you can and cannot do. That would be concerning if they get additional powers and we don't know what those are.
Right. That's why I made one of my posts was that you basically at a point you need to check every day
Make sure
to see what
changed.
rights you still have. You can't in the past, like we kind of like we got rights, so we already know what the rights are. And some people jump out the car, I know my rights, this and that. But if we just got an executive order just signed, you jump out of the car and say, I know my rights, and when your rights have been taken away, you're probably getting arrested for something that that's changed that you don't know about.
Right.
Stuff is changing that fast.
Yes. It's a volatile climate right now is what we're living in. Yeah.
And it's, as even our conversation is not a conversation of fear.
No, absolutely not.
A conversation of being informed.
Right.
I believe everybody should be informed. I remember again, you don't have to watch the news all the time, but do you remember that it was a shooting? It was two snipers up north. I don't know, it was in DC, Maryland.
Years ago.
Mm-hmm. And
I think it was DC.
And they told everybody to be off the streets. I think they ended up finding a guy hiding in a boat. But my point is, the streets was clear. The streets was empty. Nobody was walking around except for this one young lady. This one lady was walking around, beep, 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 listening to her radio, and the SWAT team ran up on her. Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? And she's beep, oh, hey, what's going on? You don't know what's going on? The city's been shut down. Everybody's supposed to stay home. We're trying to find 2 snipers. I didn't know. I didn't watch the news.
Mm-hmm.
The whole city knows, and
right.
You the only one out there. And then he didn't even realize when she was walking around, didn't see how dead
how quiet
it was.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't recognize. She just going on about the business, and didn't know. And the snipers could have sniped her, and then the even the officers, because nobody's supposed to be on the street.
Yeah.
But that's one thing I always think about, how we supposed to at least keep in somewhat. I don't think it's possible to keep up with everything.
No, you can't keep up with everything. Absolutely not.
But enough. And then if you and whoever you hang out with, y'all can be able to compare notes.
Yes.
About what's going on. I want to take another left turn.
Okay.
It's about the 4th left turn we ever took. I want to go back to, you mentioned earlier about local elections.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there's a lot of quote unquote believers that believe that the statement of the separation of church and state,
mm-hmm.
and the believers shouldn't have anything to do with politics.
Okay.
And one of the things I always say, I go to the Lord's Prayer, the part of thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So how can things in heaven be on earth without God's people making a change?
Right.
So we're supposed to be making earth like it is in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you do that? With God's people is the way, the only ones that's got a connection with God. So they got that connection. They know how God is. They know how his ways are.
Mm-hmm.
So we know how his culture is. So we are the ones that should be helping form and making earth like it is in heaven. But if all God's people exclude themselves,
right.
and don't be a part of it, it's not possible. And so and another part of it, to just be a responsible citizen. To be a responsible citizen is to vote, be a part of the process. You know how many people died to get the right to vote, and so many non-citizens
right.
don't have the right to vote. So now a lot of us believers, we have the rights, but we refuse to use them. I consider that an irresponsible citizen,
mm-hmm.
by not participating. Even if you don't agree with certain things, leave that alone, but just participate in the process.
Well, and I think that's the value of conversations like we're having, and we talk all the time. But there's a great philosopher that said, without God, man cannot. And then without man, God will not.
Mm-hmm.
So God needs somebody to use. And so the scripture also says that the government was on Jesus' shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's also a great book called The Politics of Jesus. So I think you're right. I think we have a moral responsibility to participate, but that's going to be up to the individual. As far as you and I are concerned, we think it's our responsibility to participate in local government first,
mm-hmm.
and then national government after that. But just like everything else that you make decisions on in life, you really do need to get informed so you can make an actual informed decision about what you're going to do. And so you need conversations like these with friends. You need conversations with these, with other brothers, with other believers, so that you can find out what God has to say about these situations. Because there are some people that say, I'm not going to participate in that because, the Republicans are Satan and then the Democrats are the devil. So, and we understand that. But at the grassroots level, we think you do have to get involved in order to create change.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't sit back and blame God or blame the system. And if we didn't participate.
Yeah, you can't wait for it. You got to work for it.
Right.
You got to make sure you're putting the work in. And if you say, hey, I don't believe I need to vote for either one of them. Okay, well then be that candidate. Be the one that stands up and preaches holiness or whatever you believe needs to happen in that situation. Go out and be an activist about whatever it is that you feel strongly about. We're just saying get involved. This is our opportunity. This is our way of being involved. This is our way of letting people know that we're going to take a stand as it relates to it. We're not just going to sit back. We're not going to act like it's not happening. Nobody's going to be able to gaslight us about whether people are getting due process when we know for a fact they're not. So that's our thing, is that, just get involved. Pick what road you want to take and then do something.
All right.
Yeah.
So that leads us over to civil rights.
Okay.
And I believe a lot of people don't understand the civil rights. I believe there's one side, there's certain people that it really didn't affect them because they had privileges already.
Okay.
And then I guess us, the people of color, or I don't know what word to use, that needed the civil rights and they had to fight for the civil rights. I think a lot of the younger people who didn't go through that, and it's a big gulf distance between what we as a people had to fight to get the civil rights.
Yes.
And to now, and a lot of them like, what are you talking about? Everything is fine now. There's no need to keep on talking about this. There's no need to keep fighting about this. But if we can see in the news where a lot of the civil rights that's what's directly been attacked also. Right. So the Constitution has been attacked and the civil rights have been attacked.
Agreed. And unfortunately, a lot of those things we don't see until it's a major news story. I mean, because with George Floyd, that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about the violation of his civil rights. With right here in Florida, when we talk about Zimmerman, we're talking about the violation of civil rights. And once again, because we don't operate in a vacuum, violating one person's civil rights puts everybody at jeopardy to have their civil rights violated. And so that's what I love about the conversations we have. We really don't, we're not trying to polarize people. We're not trying to scare people. This is not fear mongering, but we're just talking about, let's talk about what's happening. And then let's deal with what's true about what's happening and what's not true about what's happening. And then once you get done with that, now you decide about what you're going to use, how you're going to use the information and what you're going to do going forward. So I think that's the real value in conversations like these.
And I want more conversation. I want to invite people on to have discussions and debate, but we can only debate issues. We can debate your opinion. We can't debate facts. Facts are facts. A lot of people are trying to debate facts. Well, some people are told there's some new facts or they have their own facts. You can't debate the facts. I'm not going to debate the facts. I'll talk to you and I can learn from you. I'll bring the facts. You bring the facts. But if you got another opinion, we can have that discussion. But we're not going to argue over facts.
Nah.
But I guess a lot of people don't know the difference.
Right. And we're not going to argue anyway, because we're not trying to convince you to do anything. So we love talking about current events. We love talking about the things that are transpiring. We believe what the scripture says when it says there's a spirit of error and there's a spirit of truth. And so we're pursuing the spirit of truth. And that's all we're going to do, no matter where it is that we're having conversations, whether it's you and I talking or we're talking to somebody else. So it's never going to devolve into an argument over anything. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, like I said, it's so many things that's crazy. So I like I said, someone asked, I don't know if you say, they would say, what am I talking about? What kind of civil rights are being attacked, or what civil rights are being taken away? It's pretty much a whole list of them. Well, let me see. We kind of get the civil rights mixed up with our constitutional rights. So I'm gonna just talk about a few. Like we probably going interacting back and forth.
That's what we do.
Like
That's what we do.
The freedom of speech.
Okay.
That's one a big one that's been
recently. Yes.
Recently.
Yeah.
And I believe this freedom of speech ties in with the freedom of press.
Absolutely.
So both are being pushed away. But we have some executive orders saying that they are not, but technically they are.
Well, that's the gaslighting, because you shouldn't be able to look at something and call it something else. And so with the students that they were arresting and most recently releasing, it was to quell the conversation about the government, about the leaders, and that's what it does. It chills your confidence in being able to say what you want to say if you see somebody getting arrested simply for exercising their First Amendment right. And so I think that's, once again, that's the agenda. But if you know what the agenda is, then somebody shouldn't be able to tell you that it's something else. The AP, when they were removed from the press room because they refused to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, that's a quelling. So all the other news agencies, you can imagine what happens if they even wanted to say something different, they wouldn't, because they still want to have the access.
Right.
You know, and then the student that they arrested off of the street and then had detained for weeks simply because they were protesting against the current administration. So all of those things, they have an agenda. There's a reason behind what it is that they're doing, and that is to make sure that they can let everybody know that this could happen to you. The judge that was arrested in Wisconsin, you know, because they said she allowed an immigrant to escape through one of the back doors. They wanted to show judges also that this could happen to you. When they interviewed the press secretary and they asked her, he said, "Do you think this could go higher?" And she said, "Well, yeah, it could go higher." So, I mean, what's left? The Supreme Court, you're going to arrest a Supreme Court justice. But the whole objective is to make sure that you understand that what we're doing to them, we could do it to you if you get out of line. And so, yeah, it comes down to not only constitutional, but your civil rights also.
Yeah. So I see, like, I guess Comcast is under fire for CNN. Not CNN, the NBC. I guess NBC or CBS. I'm sorry, which one was it? I know Comcast. So it had to been NBC. NBC had to broadcast the show the administration didn't like. So now they're gonna seem like they're going out the Comcast's license.
Oh, okay.
And now I don't know.
Well, they did the same thing with CBS. With the
CBS.
Kamala Harris interview.
Okay, yeah. And now PBS, NPR, supposed to
Public
be
broadcasting.
Public broadcasting.
Yeah.
So do you know, is it totally gone already? I know
they were trying to defund public broadcasting. I don't know if that's been accomplished yet, but one of the importance of that one is government funded. So there's zero bias as it relates to PBS. And so that's where you're going to get the value of real news stories, because they're not being funded by any outside sources. They don't have anybody's hand that's in their pocket. That's real news. Matter of fact, that was one of my favorite news. That was one of the places that I actually contributed to, was to PBS. But once again, if I can drop the hammer on PBS, then I can eliminate that, of course, under the auspices of DOGE. So I'm trying to get government efficiency. So I'm reducing that. So if I can do that and then control who's in the newsroom with AP, remember, because they won't do what I want them to do. Now I wind up getting a group of people that's going to advance my agenda rather than what we elected them to do, and that is to represent we the people. And so
Right.
that's why I think these types of conversations are invaluable, because a lot of times you haven't even heard about any of the things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so if you just find somebody that you can have an actual conversation with, and it doesn't devolve into an argument or to a yelling
Right.
match or anything like that, it'll enhance both of your lives.
Right. So you just brought up a word that brings a lot, and I talked about it a lot. Doge.
Mm-hmm.
From what I heard today, I think Doge is dead.
Nobody's gonna be disappointed with that.
But there's so many people that was happy about it. And when our local government was talking about bringing their own Doge here,
Mhm.
and then the state, did you hear about our governor wanted to bring it here too?
I hadn't heard that. Mhm.
Our governor wanted to bring it here. Let's go down that road a little bit. Our governor wanted to bring it here. And a lot of times with the way Doge is supposed to be finding fraud.
Government efficiency, yeah.
But to poke the finger at, hey, them Democrats over there, look at all this stuff that they waste, right?
Mhm.
That's kind of, it should be nonpartisan.
Because there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what it's doing, then that's a perfect thing.
Right.
Yeah,
It should be nonpartisan, but but the way it was being done, this is what all the Democrats wasted on. So our governor here, I guess, was trying to impress the federal government, say, yeah, let's have one here. Kind of backfired on him.
Mm.
Because you know how long the Republicans been in charge of Florida?
Long time.
1999.
Is that right?
This is 2025. So if you find some waste and fraud and abuse, it's pointing the fingers back at the Republican Party.
Absolutely.
And not only the Republican Party, now it's like, you've been the governor, like this is your second term.
You just finding it?
And a lot of
That's
oh,
probably
that's you.
Mm.
Okay. So that's what their party was saying.
Okay.
Like, okay, you bringing in all this waste, and it was like when the situation where the immigrants was coming into Texas, and Texas was putting people on buses and planes. Our governor took the state of Florida's people's money,
spent it on the plane,
chartered some planes, and sent them over there and tricked the people and told them to get on the plane.
Sent them to Martha's Vineyard, I believe. Yeah.
Sent them all the way up there. So is that waste?
Absolutely.
So now, if you bring a actual team in, you can be finding all of this waste that you were doing.
Right.
And even like now, they found like $10 million that he put into his wife's charity. So he's kind of under fire for that.
Right.
So I think it faded away. You haven't heard about Florida.
Well, and see, and you and I have talked about this also. We don't have a problem with government efficiency. We don't have a problem with you rooting out waste and fraud, etc. But not with a chainsaw.
Right.
This needs to be a scalpel approach. This needs to be strategic. And then if you've actually found some fraud, waste, and abuse, bring it, lay it on the table, and let everybody take a look at it.
Yes.
Yeah. You don't find it in a closet somewhere and then try to convince us afterwards that it was actually fraud, waste, and abuse.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other part, even like for our city, is you see the political storm that's going on within the government. Why would you want to bring that mess that is started here? And then especially here, we already have departments that's supposed to do that.
Right.
They already have the job, even even the federal government.
Yes.
So let's fire the people.
They fired all of those
who's
guys.
doing the job.
Yes.
And let's pretend we're coming in with our capes on.
Yeah.
So the different things that the Congress had to argue over and compromise and pass and have fundings for. And I'm just going to come in out of nowhere. I have no idea what y'all went through to get this. I have no idea what it's used for. I decide it's waste and fraud. I'm going to chop it.
But and to answer your other question is why would they do that? It's because they want to impress the person that's holding the leash. I mean, because if you do what I allow you to do, then I'll give you more rain. If you don't do what I allow you to do, then I'll pull you back. And if you mimic what I'm doing here in your state, then of course now you're going to get a pat on the back for that. So that answers your question of why. Why would you bring what has clearly created chaos and confusion and heartbreak and loss of jobs and loss of incomes and families destroyed, why would you try to bring something that looks like that to your state? Well, the answer is because that's going to please the person that's holding the leash. And so that's what's most important to me. Not supporting we the people,
Right.
but taking care of the person that's holding the leash.
So that's kind of what I say. So the people who in our city that said they wanted it
Mm-hmm.
is because of the national and even from the state. It's really where's the issue? It's not, but I think if we do that, we can get their attention.
Yes.
So yeah, I think what I heard when Doge was coming along, they were saying they was going to find and cut $2 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
And after they worked a little bit, they changed it to $1 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
Then after they went around a little bit, they chopped it down even more. And I think it was supposed to be a couple of billion that they was going to
Mm-hmm.
chop. Well, it ended up just being, I think it was, again, I don't know the exact numbers. I think it's around $2 billion
Total.
total. But the federal government has already spent $20 billion just in the 100 days.
Wow.
So where's the savings?
Where's the savings? Where's the savings? Yeah.
So
And if you really wanted to save, I mean, we were looking at it before we got started here, and the president is taking his first official trip to Qatar today. But I think the stats show that it's been 16 million spent just on golf alone in the first 100 days. Yeah.
It's so much to that.
Yeah.
Somebody who he said that we got two. I'm sick of us bringing this around.
Mm-hmm.
He decided we shouldn't have Veterans Day
Yes.
because we should celebrate wins. So he decided to celebrate, was it World War I?
World War I Day. Yeah.
And then got a lot of backlash.
Yes.
Then he decided we're gonna have two celebrations,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not gonna have any time off because people have too many vacations.
There's too many holidays.
Too many holidays.
Yes,
too
too many
much
holidays.
time off.
Yes.
So just too much. But man, I forgot where I was going.
Well, and plus you're you're talking about veterans, and we're two veterans, so we're two DD 214 alumni.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was supposed to be the administration for veterans,
Right.
but we've cut Veterans Affairs. We've lost the Veteran Suicide Hotline. We had, to date, I think it's 864,000 people have been cut from the Veterans Administration. And so for an administration that said that they were going to support and take care of veterans, we're getting just the opposite of that. They believe that veterans are double dipping if they're receiving disability and any other assistance.
Right.
So looking at ways to limit that also. And so that's what's disheartening is you give your very life in a lot of instances for a country that doesn't provide you with the one thing that you were asking them for, and that was trust and assistance.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's very disappointing. And as two vets, we talk about that also. I mean, that's the least you could do for
Right.
somebody who does what the military requires people to do.
But as his actions is not the words, the actions. Well, he has kind of a disdain for the military.
Mm-hmm.
And he don't like losers. We had McCain. McCain was a prisoner of war, and he said, McCain is a loser because he was caught. He was a prisoner, so he's a loser.
Right.
If you
I
got,
prefer my heroes don't get captured.
yeah,
Yeah. So, and see, that's what's important too, that when you say stuff like that, you bring receipts. So we're not making it up. If you just roll the tape, he says, I prefer my heroes don't get captured. So I don't consider him a hero. Yeah.
and I believe that was part of why he got rid of Veterans Day
Mm-hmm.
and tried to, okay, well, this is the war that we won, and this is what I'm gonna
Right.
do. But again, that's just like without Congress,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a great. I don't want to spend the time on him, but it's just so many things. It's just like pops in his head. He thinks it's a good idea because right now I'm reminded of Alcatraz. You know about Alcatraz?
Yes, when he was thought it might be a good idea to open up Alcatraz again. Although when it was open, it was one of the most expensive prisons to maintain because everything has to be barged in. Food has to be barged in, sewage has to be barged out. And it's a rust bucket at this point.
But you know why he wants to do that?
Well, I heard somebody theorize that it was because he had watched the movie, but
He said it.
I couldn't. Oh, he did say that.
I saw the
movie
interview
Alcatraz. Okay.
of him saying he said the local TV station down in South
In
Florida
Mm-hmm.
played Alcatraz, and I don't know.
Escape from Alcatraz.
Escape for Alcatraz
Mm-hmm.
with Clint Eastwood. I know I've seen it, and he enjoyed the pain and the suffering that the people endured.
Mm-hmm.
So when he finished watching that, that's what he wants: pain and suffering. And like, it's a good idea to reopen up Alcatraz so we can bring pain and suffering. And then he was saying nobody ever escaped. I believe someone did, but
it was 3 people that escaped.
But he said that nobody ever escaped from there, and they found their clothes and it was chewed up by sharks. And you really know what happened with the shark teeth. So he really enjoys the pain and suffering. That's the reason why he wants to Alcatraz. But then I saw another report. It's a museum now,
right?
And the guy was like, giving tours. He was like, how much money would it take to get this operational?
It's not a lot of money. Yeah,
it's no number. He's like, I could put my hand through some walls.
Yeah,
it's falling apart. It's like
it's a rust bucket.
It's best to be torn all the way down and rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
But Trump's saying, whatever it takes, get it back up and running, so people can go there to suffer.
Right.
And I think of the scripture. I can't think of the scripture. The scripture of what you're trying to build something destruction for your enemy, and it may end up
talking about Haman and the gallows. Yeah, the gallows he built for his enemy, Mordecai, and he wound up getting hanged on them himself.
Yeah.
So
that's how I'm like, I could understand trying to have law and order for your country, but on the other hand, if you're just doing it to cause pain and suffering, and so you can see what's going on with the different people that's been separated from their family, or they're sending out unleashed people to go arrest. It was going to be criminal immigrants. Now is immigrants. Period. It don't matter. You don't have to do anything. You're an immigrant. So now that's the crime. So he's going up there, busting and snatching people off the street. Looks like he enjoys that pain and suffering, and a lot of people don't see that.
Well, I think he's the epitome of a bully, and so it goes back to also talking about the due process and Abrego Garcia, who's in El Salvador, and you remember the discussion he was having with the news person about him having MS-13. I think we talked about that too. MS-13 on his knuckles, and it's like that was photoshopped. No, it wasn't photoshopped. It was real. Do I need to get you the picture? No, you don't need to get me the picture. It was photoshopped. We have a picture of his hand when he was in prison in El Salvador, and there's nothing on it. So it's just unfortunate that we live in a society where truth can be distorted, and it doesn't matter to individuals as long as it supports their agenda. That's what's really sad about this. And so that's why we can't just sit quietly while things are going on. You got to say something. You got to do something. Yeah, you got to be active.
It was crazy. I thought most people around the world could see that those. I don't know if anybody don't know what we're talking about. The guy, they showed a picture of his hands with different
tattoos on his fingers.
Tattoos on his finger. And then he had you can find a picture, the tattoos on his fingers, and then Photoshop him as 1-3 was over top of it. Do you know there's a lot of commentators, even black commentators, are saying that the actual MS-13 is actually on his hand?
Well, my hope would be once they saw the picture of his hand from El Salvador that they would say, okay, well, now I understand.
No, they're defending and saying that was on his hands.
That's unfortunate.
And I'm like, how in the world could you possibly?
Yeah.
What?
You're looking at
How
the
are you
truth.
in?
You look at the truth and you still call it a lie.
Yeah, they saying it is up there, and we shouldn't be talking about it. Everybody can see that the numbers are there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it's still a percentage of people that are like in La La Land. That's all I can.
Well, but let's get to the point of the matter is that he shouldn't have been there, period.
Right.
If due process, and that was the one country where the judge says do not deport him, in addition to the fact that the judge said don't send anybody there. So they violated both court orders. Those are still in litigation. That was the one country that he shouldn't have been sent to. If you were going to send him anywhere, that's still in litigation. But even before you even get to that point, he did not get due process. And every person gets due process in America. If you're in America and you're a person, you get due process.
Yes, and there's I forgot how many, and now they are sending in U.S. citizens. I had some words for today. That's one of the words were testing the water. That's what comes up. That's what comes with that, testing the water.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, testing the water. So he is seeing, or the administration is seeing, how far
what he can get away with.
What they can get away with. How far they can push the
judiciary
system. So now the Supreme Court said go bring them back. They said which we're not bringing them back.
Well, we said we can't. We can't bring them back. The president of El Salvador, he's responsible for that. I can't bring him back. Or puts it on the lawyers and says, I got great lawyers, and so it's up to them whether he comes back.
But then he goes on TV and said he can bring him back.
But I'm not going to.
He's not going to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just clear violation of the court.
So now I don't know what happened when you got the judges you got your lawyers standing before the judge, and when he's saying your defense is you can't bring him back, and then hey, I got a clip of here. He's saying that he can make a decision right now to bring him back. He refused to. So now what? I was like, what in the world those lawyers got to say?
Well, the lawyer's going to wind up getting disbarred because you're not going to stand in front of the judge and tell him what you're not going to do. So and you could also be held in contempt and go to prison. So he puts all of their careers at risk. But they understood. I'm sure they understood what they were getting into when they got involved. So all of that comes with the job.
And I guess they figure they're going to get pardoned.
Yeah. Well, just like the January 6th people that got pardoned.
So that's the other. I don't. On one hand, you're talking about law and order, but as long as if you are on my side and agree with me, you can break all the laws you want.
Right.
Don't worry about it. You just pardon. What was that? Some people doing some corruption. Even they frauded the vets over in California, no, in Vegas.
Oh, the lady.
Yeah.
Was collecting money. She was collecting money, I think, for a police memorial.
Okay.
And
use it on
and it never made it to plastic surgery, etc. Yeah. So
I don't care. Concerned about the police. But then, like I said, we could
go on and on, sir. We could go on and
January 6th. So some of the people supposed to pay some restitution. Guess they don't have to pay the restitution, and then
not if you got a full pardon.
The federal government is going to pay them restitution.
I hadn't heard that part.
So we're paying y'all for busting up and tearing up our Congress. It's mind-boggling.
Yep.
What's our time look like? Oh man, it is an hour already. I think we said a lot.
Yeah.
I hope you learned something. We didn't go down the path that we wanted to go down, but I think you learned something. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you tune in again next time. Let us know what direction you want to go in. We've been. I don't watch the news all the time, but I'm watching us enough, I believe, to keep up a little bit because I know it's just a lot that I don't know. So I will ask you guys, hey, send in some questions, send in some comments. Let us know what you want to know about. Again, we got more. It just goes on. It just goes on and on and on. Every day is something different. I got a lot of information. So I get to say, tune in next time. Let us know what you want to know about. Pray everybody be well, be safe, trust in God. It's going to be all right. All right. Until next time, the Joe out.